I finished all 5 episodes of WWE Unreal Season 2 on Netflix, and Season 2 was very much like Season 1 in that if you are not a WWE fan and you come into this cold, I think you'll find it all very interesting as far as like how the sausage is made, and you'll come away from it with a greater appreciation for what goes into making the show what it is. By the show, I mean like WWE in general. Right, from the talent to the production to the writing and everything in between. I don't think that this is a show that is making very many new fans, though. I think it's more than likely it's existing fans that are going to be watching because they always want to know what's going on behind the scenes. Many times what's going on behind the scenes is more interesting than what's going on camera. And that remains my biggest issue with the show. Nobody is forcing me to watch this, right? I wanted to, and I wanted to review it here on my show, so I watched it. But I just hate how much they give away. Like, I know kayfabe is dead, and we know, wrestling is a collaboration, it's a show, we all know that, but not every magician needs to give away every trick that they do. And I feel like today's wrestling, they give too much away, and they throw it in your face. Too much, that it's all just a show, to the point where they promote this during the actual shows, where if I didn't want to watch Unreal, it's still being thrown in my face any given night by Michael Cole. Oh, like, hey, we're taking to the writer's room, and these people really don't hate each other. Like, I hate being beaten over the head with it during Raw and SmackDown. That's my biggest gripe. But that doesn't mean that the show is without its benefits. Like, I like the focus on people like Penta and Chelsea Green at different points during the season. The cameras follow them around, and not just backstage, but like at their home, or Penta has, I guess it's his school or gym, and he's training kids to become wrestlers, and his daughter was there. Like, that was very cool. That kind of stuff really helps shine a light on their personalities in a way that we don't get to see on the weekly shows. So I think it could be useful for some talents in that way. But I do have to say, I think the biggest sin with a show like this in today's modern WWE is just how boring it is compared to what a show like this would have looked like 20 or 30 years ago. Like, I'm glad we didn't have this 30 years ago to kill the illusion, but like, if we did, if there was an Unreal in the mid-90s or the late 90s, it would have been so much more entertaining. Like, it would have been so much more interesting with actual conflict on the show. You'd have people that really did hate each other or were looking to step over each other to make it to the top. Like, imagine the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels stuff playing out on a show like Unreal. You almost wouldn't even believe it was real. You would have to think it was all manufactured. But no, those guys really did not like each other there for a period of time. So, like, real personality clashes behind the scenes. Here, it's just like the way they portray it, it's just one big happy family. Everyone's just happy to be there. Everyone is always looking for Triple H's affirmation. And after a while, it's like, all right, we get it. Like watching CM Punk and Triple H all lovey-dovey together. Like, in many ways, this show came a couple of decades late, when it would have been far more interesting back then. Everything now is just too polished. It's too sanitized. It's too nice and neat. They have scenes from these creative meetings that are just not very interesting. Like, there's very little conflict, very little pushback on anything, or at least that's what they choose to show us. Of course, they edit the shit out of this, so who knows what's left on the cutting room floor. But yeah, there's like a few scenes where they make Road Dogg this season look like a blithering idiot. But to his credit, like, at least he's offering ideas that he believes in, right? He just doesn't have any sort of follow-up to them. Like, when he gets called out on stuff, he doesn't have a good rationale for it. So what happens is he just comes off as reactionary, like a fan online. This is what I think we should do. Oh, okay, but if we do that, then what happens here? Oh, I don't know. You're probably right. We shouldn't do it then. Forget I said anything. Like, okay, boy, what a great creative meeting this is. Like, there were multiple things said in those creative meetings that just made me shake my head. So, I mean, it's hard to know where the fiction ends and where the fact begins with this show. They absolutely manufacture things, for the sake of it's reality TV. So, I mean, what else do you expect? But I do believe a lot of the reactions that we see from the talents are genuine. Like Lyra Valkyria, she was in tears after her Summerslam match with Becky Lynch. They had a bad match. Like, just objectively, it was not good. The only bad one I've seen them have, but it was the big blow-off to their feud. Remember the zip ties and all the stuff with the weapons and the plunder? They did a plunder match, and it didn't work. When what made their matches great was letting them go out there and fucking wrestle. They decided to do a garbage match, and it shit the bed. So I think it came right after also a TLC match that night, and that didn't help matters. But like, you see how devastated Lyra is, that they just had a bad night. Even John Cena comes over to her to give her a pep talk and try to like lift her spirits, but like there's no convincing her. Like she's not buying it. She knew it was bad, and you feel bad for her, watching her talk about it, because you can see how much it bothers her that they couldn't go out there and in the capper to this big program they had, really just kind of put a nice bow on it and have this great blow off. And instead it's like, ooh, that wasn't good. And that's one of the stories they focus on this season is Becky Lynch's return and her program with Lyra all the way through SummerSlam. They cover R-Truth's contract expiring and not being renewed, Naomi winning Money in the Bank and then eventually cashing in to become the world champion, and the fake Seth Rollins injury that led to his world title win at SummerSlam. One of the more ridiculous moments, and this was in the very first episode, has Bruce Pritchard in a creative meeting as they are talking about Backlash and the match between Gunther and Pat McAfee, suggesting that it would be too predictable for Gunther to just go in there and beat Pat McAfee. Now, mind you, he made this argument while the cameras were rolling. So he was he just doing it for the cameras? Or did he really think that anything other than what they ended up doing was the right outcome for that match? The fact that it was even suggested that McAfee might possibly beat Gunther, even on a fluke, is so batshit crazy. Like, especially when you remember that Gunther had just tapped out to the Yeet Man at WrestleMania. He had just tapped out to Jey Uso. Can you imagine after tapping out to Jey Uso and losing the World Heavyweight Championship, the World Heavyweight Championship, if on the very next PLE they had Pat McAfee steal a win off of Gunther? Like, if you wanted to kill Gunther dead, then that's exactly what you would do. You could just tape a sign on his back, too, that says, "Kick me." And he could walk everywhere he walks with the sign. People are kicking him in his ass. Just because something is predictable does not make it bad. Or it doesn't mean that you don't do it. You can come up with ways to dress it up and make it exciting and make people believe that maybe it could happen. Give McAfee a couple of hope spots. But in the end, you do what makes sense. You don't do something just to shock people. Thankfully, there was another writer in the room, their VP of Creative, who was the voice of reason here. And he said, I don't know why Gunther would be losing to our color commentator. And then he's going to have to go out there on TV the next week, and Pat's going to be sitting 10 feet away. And Gunther's not going to do anything about it. Like, when you think about it like that, it's pretty damn silly. Then there's the R-Truth stuff. He was going to be working a match with John Cena. This was their match on Saturday night's main event. Road Dogg, who has been tight with Truth going back over 20 years. I mean, he's the reason Truth got his job in WWE. He tells Triple H that Truth wants to shave his head for the match with John Cena. And Triple H cannot understand why. And Road Dogg doesn't react well to this. He goes, oh, everything is the shits. I can't wait for this to just be over with. And Triple H keeps pushing. He just doesn't understand like what Truth cutting his hair before the match is supposed to accomplish. Which, to be fair, it would have been out of left field, but it's like, why not use that as a way to put more heat on John Cena? Like, with this floundering heel turn that he ended up having for the most part, like, everyone loves R-Truth. Why not have the match? John Cena wins, and then after the match, have Cena cut Truth's braids off, and then he could hold him up like a trophy. Like, that would have gotten him some heat. This was never brought up during the meeting, at least not on camera. This was never broached. So Truth and Cena, they have their match, everything goes fine. And then Truth is taking his daughter to dance class one day, and he says he gets a phone call telling him that he's released, which is when he put that tweet out letting everybody know that he just got released. And this is why no one is safe, by the way, even someone like Miz. And I think it was with Chris Van Vliet. He interviewed Miz, and Miz said that even he worries about getting that call one day, about getting swept up in some mass wave of releases. No one is immune from losing their job. No one signs a lifetime contract with WWE. No one is owed a job for life. But there are just certain talents that you would just never think would be let go. They're too well liked. They're a great utility player for them to plug in wherever the company needs them. Or they're there for comic relief, whatever their role may be on the show. That's R-Truth. That's The Miz. So when Truth said he got released, it was shocking. And it was very upsetting to a lot of people, especially on their own roster. The way Triple H explains it, Truth's contract was coming due, and there was a breakdown in communication between the two sides on what a new deal would look like. Which, if you read between the lines, they were offering less money. And Truth did not want to take less money. So they were letting him know, we're not going to renew your deal. Right? That's their position. He said that Truth went and put that tweet out when the hope was, from their end, like, we'll tell him that, okay, we're going to let your deal expire. And then he'll come back to the table and say, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on a second here. Let's talk this out. Let's make a deal. So they put it back on him that he was unwilling to accept what they were offering him. But he says that Truth was not, he was never not under contract. He was never technically fired because his contract still wasn't up yet. And Road Dogg agrees with this and says Truth being released made perfect business sense because of how old Truth is. Maybe you're not going to get the same return on your investment. But honestly, what have they done with him in the last 5 years that was going to be radically different in the next 5? Like, unless he wanted an easier schedule. I don't know how much easier it can get, seeing as how they barely do any house shows anymore. Honestly, neither side really came off well here, I thought, because Truth says, well, when I got the phone call, I took it to mean that I was fired, which technically wasn't true. And he put the tweet out, was he looking to get sympathy out of it and rile people up to let the company know how they feel? Maybe. If he was, it was a great strategy because it worked. And based on the way they've used him since, it's clear that they had no special plans for him. Either his contract was going to lapse and he was going to be done, or he was going to take what they were offering and he would have been in the exact same spot he's always been in. So they shot the angle where he cut his hair on TV and, he was going to be all serious, Ron Killings. And then it never went anywhere. And now he's back to being goofy and talking to Nick Aldis about his balls on TV every week. And the real reason, by the way, that he cut his hair, he admitted, he was going bald. So we got that little reveal. Like, I love how at the very end of that episode, it's like just Truth looking into the camera. You know why I cut my hair? Because I was going bald. And that's how it ends. They featured Naomi, and they briefly talked about her and Sasha Banks walking out when they were the women's tag team champions in 2022. Triple H said that he wasn't involved at the time, so he didn't have much to really say about it, and they more or less glossed over the whole thing. It's one of those domino effect things, though, in wrestling, where I look back at that, the Sasha and Naomi walkout. That's what led to CM Punk tweeting about workers' rights. He tweeted in support of them when they walked out, and he mentioned workers' rights in his tweet. Hangman Page then threw back in his face the whole workers' rights thing in that infamous promo on Dynamite, which eventually played a role in Punk crashing out at Brawl Out. That wasn't the only thing, because there was also the Colt Cabana stuff, but it was a big part of why Punk had that meltdown. And so it makes you wonder, like, if Punk doesn't tweet that out and Hangman doesn't bring it up, does all of that other stuff go down the way that it did? We'll never know. It'll forever be one of those great what ifs. The third episode is where they featured Penta and also Chelsea Green. And imagine my surprise when they started showing footage of Chelsea's match with Penta in Lucha Underground. I was transported back there for a minute, and I missed it all over again. You hear Matt Stryker on commentary, and they're showing you footage. They're showing you highlights from this. I wonder who owns that footage that they were able to show that. But yeah, they're showing this, and they had a killer match, actually. Chelsea goes, it will never happen again because you can't redo perfection. And I'm just watching that. I'm like, really? Is that what it is? Is that why we're never going to see it again? So there's a creative meeting where Road Dogg pitches putting the United States title back on Chelsea. Triple H, though, wants to know, who does she work with if you do that? Because all you have are Michin, B-Fab, and Zelina. All women, he says, that she's already worked with. Anyone outside of those names, and she has to lose. Right? This is what they're saying. Road Dogg looks like he takes this shit very personally whenever one of his ideas gets shot down. And I love how Triple H correctly points out the lack of women for her to work with. Like, where is the voice in the room, though, that says to him, well, why haven't we called anyone new up yet from NXT? That might have helped solve that problem. But it's the comments that Michael Hayes makes about Chelsea Green and the way in which he says them that really rub me the wrong way. Michael Hayes talks about how entertaining Chelsea is. Like, he's trying to put her over while at the same time burying her by saying that she's entertaining, but she's not built for, nor should she be, in a Charlotte Flair role or a Tiffany Stratton role, because Chelsea's job is to help make those people. And just the way that he said it, it did not come across like, it didn't come across as, oh, well, this is her role now. That's her job now. But at some point, maybe she can be that person. It came off as, in his own words, she's not built to be that person. Like, this is her ceiling, and this is her role, and this is as good as it's ever going to get. And if he honestly believes that, then he shouldn't be in the position that he's in. Because Chelsea Green absolutely has what it takes to be a world champion in that division one day. She's already very popular. So it's not a matter of like, oh, she can't get over in that role. Yeah, I mean, with her, it's very comedic, the stuff they have her doing on TV. It would not be that difficult if you wanted to come up with a story for Chelsea where something happens and all of a sudden shit gets a little more serious with her. Because we've seen her do that before. Dude, on this fucking episode, in the footage from Lucha Underground that they were showing, like, we know she's got it in her. And I'm like listening to him say this stuff and I'm like, fuck that. She absolutely can. He's right about that not being her role right now. Right now, yes, her role is to elevate other people, but that shouldn't be her only role. That shouldn't be the only thing that she's good for. Like, she's gotten as far as she's ever going to go. And to hear him say that really irked the shit out of me. And I thought it was a real slap in her face. Bobby Roode and Abyss, they got more screen time this season as producers. If you remember last season, Abyss was so eager to please Bruce Pritchard, especially that first Raw on Netflix. He was like a little kid. Like letting down Bruce was the worst thing in the world. Like, he was letting down his dad. And he comes across as very likable and very affable, but just very, how shall I say this? He comes across as very overeager. Like, there are times where he's talking to Triple H or Bruce at Gorilla about something, asking over and over and over again, like, oh, was that okay? Was that okay? Is that what you wanted? You know, like, this is what we were trying to do. Did you like it? Did you like it? Was that okay? And they're sitting there and they have a look on their faces like, oh God, this guy again. Like, they had a look on their faces like they were annoyed with him and they wanted him to go away. And I kind of felt the same way, honestly. Like, I could see where when he turns his back to go walk away, they probably make fun of him behind his back or something. Like, they would totally do that. But he just really wants to do a good job and he wants to make his boss proud. And then there's Bobby Roode. It's very clear that he's become someone that they really like and trust in big situations. He was one of the very few people they actually clued in about the fake Seth Rollins injury at Saturday night's main event. I love, by the way, all of the TNA influence that they now have backstage. You got Bobby Roode, you got Abyss, you got Petey Williams. But Abyss was overseeing the men's Money in the Bank match last year. And they had a planned finish with Seth Rollins and LA Knight. They had it all mapped out. And as the match progresses, Abyss is in the back. He's on headset. He's all hyped up. They're hitting their cues. Everything's going great. And then the ending got screwed up. And it didn't go the way that they had discussed it. And there was supposed to be a face-to-face at the top of the ladder with Knight on one side of the ladder, Rollins on the other side. And it was going to be this big dramatic thing where he kind of knocks Rollins down a few steps, or maybe knocks him off the ladder. And it's like, oh shit, he might actually, LA Knight might actually win this, right? To bring the crowd back up, but then Rollins will race back up the ladder. You're just playing with people's emotions, right? They had this whole thing all mapped out. And then ultimately Seth stomps him, and then he goes back up and he grabs the briefcase. But they wanted it to be a real struggle for a while to build the drama. It didn't work out that way. It did not work out. And I don't know who's to blame for that. My impression was LA Knight, that maybe he just blanked on what the spot was. I don't know if it was him or Rollins. I don't know. It did not go the way that they wanted it to go. And Triple H is not thrilled. And poor Abyss, like, he had to be shitting himself. Triple H had to put his mind at ease and just remind Abyss, like, look, the talents are out there. They're the ones who have to do the work, okay? Don't put this on you. It's not your fault. And he's right. Like, when shit goes sideways like that, or if someone forgets their spot, that's on them. Like, you can't blame the producer for that. It's like a coach who calls a play. It's up to the players to go out on the field and actually carry out and execute the play. And it's a great play. It should win the game. But if the players don't execute or they drop the ball, that's not the coach's fault. But that's where the clip comes from that I saw people sharing on social media, completely out of context, of LA Knight kneeling down at Gorilla while Triple H browbeats him. People online were making it seem like the reason Knight looked so dejected is because he was told he was losing. When that clip came after the match, and the reason that he was upset is because he botched the finish. And Triple H is explaining to him, like, that the way the finish was designed, it was designed for you, to try to make you look strong, even though you were losing. It was designed to make you look as strong as possible. And I had no problem with the way that Triple H spoke to him, or the fact that he was sitting down and LA Knight had to crouch down to, like, be at his level. It's like this is what people were complaining about online. I'm convinced that there are people who wake up in the morning looking for things to get upset about. Like, the shit that I get upset about, and I get upset about a lot of shit, like, that just comes organically. It's just like something pisses me off, I'm going to tell you about it. But I don't wake up in the morning and brush my teeth and think, what could I be pissed off about today? Like, I don't need to do that because I already know there's going to be a good 5 to 10 things that are going to piss me off. But, like, are we really bashing Triple H for sitting in his chair and LA Knight crouching down? Like, is this what we're doing now? They covered the period from Saturday night's main event up until SummerSlam. And Jelly Roll, he got a lot of face time in the 4th episode. He came off, I thought, very well, very likable. He's obviously a huge fan. He's very humble. And we already knew this, but this did confirm that it was his idea to lose in the SummerSlam match with him and Randy Orton against Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul. He wanted to put the heels over. A lot of times in these celebrity matches, it goes the other way. I don't want to say every single time, but I would say 95% plus of the time. When you have a celebrity match, the celebrity goes over. Look at Mr. T. Look at Lawrence Taylor at WrestleMania 11. Look at Floyd Mayweather at WrestleMania 24. Snooki. Johnny Knoxville against Sami Zayn. David Arquette in WCW won their fucking world title. Kevin Federline still owns a win over John Cena that John Cena, by the way, never avenged. And now he never will. I'm surprised we didn't see him during that retirement tour. The Rollins injury angle, they kept most people in the dark about it, including the referee. Medical had to know, so the doctors were aware. As was LA Knight, which if Seth Rollins had his way, LA Knight would not have known. Rollins did not want Knight to know. Like, he was like, why does he have to know? And Triple H correctly points out like how shitty that would be, and how if the shoe was on the other foot and nobody clued you in, like, you would be beside yourself with rage. And Rollins was like, yeah, you're probably right. But like, imagine being LA Knight. You're wrestling this guy. You think he's legitimately hurt, and they rush you to the finish. You feel terrible, only to then find out they worked you. Like, you were one of the marks in the crowd. You got worked. Yeah, I'd be pretty pissed off about that. Like, you want to play with the fans' emotions? That's fine. That's what wrestling does. They play with your emotions. You don't do that with the talent. And they showed Triple H telling the timekeeper in his headset, or someone to let the timekeeper know, like, do not ring the fucking bell until I tell you to do so. Don't ring the fucking bell. It's like a bizarro version of Montreal. It's like the inverse of Montreal. Don't ring the bell. It's like John Cena when he went heel. Instead of never give up, it's like telling all the little kids, don't ever give up. right? All the Make-A-Wish stuff, all the wonderful stuff that John Cena did. And then when he went heel, I saw people mocking up these illustrations of John Cena like in a hospital telling kids to give up. This is horrible, but I still laughed. So anyway, I love the stuff with Io Sky and the build to her main event with Rhea Ripley at Evolution, which was one of the best matches all year in 2025. I love Triple H putting over Io so strongly. And he made the comment, he goes, if something happened to the roster and I had to start from scratch, like a fucking plane crash or something, and I had to start from scratch, if you just gave me Io Sky, I would be good. Which is pretty high praise. And also, speaking of things online that people made a big deal about, I got to mention this. People online, I know Vince Russo was one of these. He was fucking apoplectic about this, but there were people online who made a big deal about Io Sky coming back to Gorilla after the match. And they were all so very happy because the match was awesome. And she jumps up into Triple H's arms for a big hug. She was just so happy with how the match went. And like, people are like, oh, this is how inappropriate this is. And they're sharing pictures of the hug. And I'm like, again, is this what we have chosen to be mad about today? Is this what we woke up and decided, hey, we're going to die on this hill? It's not that deep. It's really not. Vince McMahon would literally book himself to make out with all of the divas on TV. If Io Sky jumping into Triple H's arms for a hug in a moment of joy is the worst, in front of all the cameras, by the way, it's not like they went off into the fucking broom closet and did this. If her jumping into Triple H's arms for a hug in a moment of joy is the worst thing that this man does, and I'm sure it's not, but if that's the worst thing he does, I'm not going to be fake outraged over it. The last episode covered SummerSlam, with Seth doing the surprise cash-in, Cody winning the belt back from John Cena. They recognized the WrestleMania match was no good, and they wanted to make up for it, which they did. That match was awesome. But the reason they turned Cena so suddenly 2 days before their match was because Cody was going to be away for 6 weeks filming Street Fighter. Because they had an idea to do something after SummerSlam. So Cody would win the belt back, Cena still heel, but then Cena maybe comes to his aid in like an angle on TV. And he turns babyface that way. But they had to do it sooner because Cody wasn't going to be around. But honestly, like, it was best to just rip the Band-Aid off and just get it over with. A few other observations here about this season. I don't remember it being this blatant. This really hit me watching this. I don't remember it being this blatant in the first season. But here, like, they would cut back to the gorilla position for some of the matches. And you'd see the producers are on headset and they're producing. And you would see like Bobby Roode or Abyss on headset giving, I presume, the referee cues about what move was coming next. And I'm not even talking about like the finish, just like the next spot. Like, I didn't realize just how much they micromanage every little thing, right down to the individual moves in every match. That's crazy to me. Like, I can understand giving them a heads up on big spots. You want to make sure that you get the right camera shot or like the right crowd shot for it. But every little move, like, I can see why so many wrestlers prefer the house shows to TV, because they're able to go out there and just fucking work. Like actual pro wrestlers, call shit on the fly, go out there, have fun, try new things. You don't have to like run every little move by someone before you go out there. It makes total sense to me. And then, as with season 1, they had the whiteboards in the writer's room in some of the episodes, giving insight into some of the things that were planned that ended up not happening. So the original King and Queen of the Ring finals at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia were supposed to be Cody Rhodes against Rusev, which is just laughable looking back at it now, especially after the way he was booked in the Royal Rumble last night. Cody Rhodes against Rusev and Rhea Ripley against Julia. That would have been a big spot for Julia. Instead, she ended up not even being in the tournament, and Rhea got bounced out of the opening round, and they got Jade Cargill in there in the finals against Asuka. And Jade then went on to challenge for the title at SummerSlam, and she lost. Rusev also ended up getting bounced in the opening round, with Jey Uso advancing. And we got Cody Rhodes against Randy Orton in the finals, which was definitely the bigger match, but it seems they had a bigger push in mind for Rusev, and they soured on him pretty early on into his return. Then for SummerSlam, early plans had Roman Reigns wrestling Braun Breaker, which would have been bigger than the tag match they did, But I actually don't mind them doing Roman against Bronson Reed first, because now it sets up a much bigger match down the road. First time ever between Roman and Braun. They had Seth Rollins penciled in here against Sami Zayn. Finn Balor as the Demon against Dominic Mysterio, which gives away what the plan is, by the way, for the eventual Balor babyface turn. When he finally wrestles Dom, I think that's probably the WrestleMania match this year. We probably get the Demon. Jey Uso against Rusev, which just proves my point that Rusev was clearly earmarked for a much bigger push and they soured on it for whatever reason. Rhea Ripley against Asuka. Trish Stratus was supposed to have a match against someone. She ended up not being on the show at all. They actually ended up doing less with her than I thought they would last year, considering it was 25 years of Trish Stratus in WWE. I know she was in the Royal Rumble. She had that tag match with Tiffany, I think, right? They teamed up at Elimination Chamber. And then she wrestled Tiffany for the title at Evolution. And that was a very rushed match with no build. But that was it. That's all they did with Trish last year. They were going to do Becky against Bayley for the Intercontinental title. And Liv Morgan tagging with Raquel Rodriguez against the Bella Twins. So literally the entire card ended up changing outside of the top two title matches, which were CM Punk against Gunther and John Cena against Cody Rhodes. Everything else changed. And comparing what they did to what they wanted to do, the original card was stronger than what they ended up giving us. Although Liv got hurt, so she wasn't going to be wrestling regardless. So if you're not a fan of them pulling back the curtain so much for this stuff, if you really hate that, then this is not the show for you. But if you dig some of the backstage stuff or, a look at the creative process to the extent that what they're showing you is genuine, then it's an easy watch. And you do gain a greater appreciation for certain individuals, like the producers and what goes into their roles, because they don't get the kind of love that someone like Triple H gets, because he's front and center with everything. Like, he's the face of it. So you get a window into who these other guys are and what their contributions are to the show. I spied Molly Holly. She was also in some of the episodes. She wasn't really featured. She's someone who I would like to see them maybe do more of a deep dive into what her role is and her history with the company and in wrestling. You just sort of saw her here and there in the background, but she's another one. She's worked as a producer now for them for a number of years. And in many ways, they're the unsung heroes, because they make some very significant contributions to the shows. And in most cases, you will never know about it. You will never hear about it. You will never know about it. They don't get credits at the end of the show like Paul Levesque and Lee Fitting do at the end of every episode. I was hoping in season 2 they would focus on the announcers also, but they didn't really do that outside of Pat McAfee. And he's barely even an announcer for them anymore. Although supposedly he's going to be coming back soon, whatever that means. It's already been renewed for a third season. This season ended after Cena's match at Summerslam with Brock Lesnar coming out at the end. So Brock is going to factor into the next season. And the main story is going to be the final months of John Cena's retirement tour. So that'll be dropping sometime this summer. I would be surprised if this AJ Styles retirement stuff isn't one of the top stories in season 4. Not 3, but probably season 4. Although, I guess that'll depend on whether or not he leaves and goes and works somewhere else. Then I guess it won't be. But otherwise, we could probably expect to see some stuff on AJ in season 4.